Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my off-the-grid readathon vlog. So once again, it is time for the off-the-grid readathon. You may have seen my announcement video, which has my TBR that I'm very excited for. This is the last off-the-grid readathon for the year. We will start up again in January because we do this readathon quarterly. And yeah, I'm really pumped. I'm really excited for this one. I have mixed luck with this readathon, which is kind of funny because I'm one of the people who runs it. But last time when we did this in when was the last one? July, I think. I smashed it. I did such a good job. I read so many books and I read some amazing stuff. So I have really high hopes for this edition of the readathon, mostly because I picked the most kick-ass TBR ever. I decided to theme my off-the-grid reading with spooky books, because I'm always bitching about how I don't get to read spooky books. Because this time of year there's so many like review copies and stuff that need to be read, so much stuff is publishing, but I'm being a little bit selfish this year and I'm reading spooky stuff. So let me gather them up because everything's kind of scattered around me. Right, okay, so if you've seen my video, you know what I'm gonna read. But basically I have The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I'm so pumped. This is like the best TBR ever. So it is Thursday. It is just after 10 o'clock in the evening, and my night is winding it down. I'm gonna be going to bed soon. The readathon starts at midnight, but like I've been staying up past midnight for a while, and my body just doesn't really love it when I do that anymore, so I'm going to be going to bed soon, getting a reasonable amount of sleep. So I have technically kind of started the readathon a little bit early, which is what I usually do. So this evening I started The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. This edition happens to have two stories in it, The Aspirin Papers and The Turn of the Screw. So I'm reading The Turn of the Screw first, and then I might go back and read The Aspirin Papers during the readathon. Maybe, maybe not, we'll see. So this starts on page 145 and I'm on page 194. So I've done quite a bit of reading this evening. I'm loving this. I wasn't sure because I was a literature major at university. And if you have done a literature degree, you'll probably know that that can sometimes really destroy your love of classics. I've always been a classics reader, but like I burnt out on them in such a big way. I'm extremely well read from like 2010 prior and after 2010 when I graduated, less so. So yeah, I haven't read any Henry James before. I've been wanting to read The Turn of the Screw for a long time, partially because of The Haunting of Bly Manor, which I have not seen yet. I know that that show tends to take like the title of the book and maybe like the name of the house, and that's it. That's the only resemblance it has, but I'm still really excited to read this in relation to watching that. Hopefully we're going to watch it this weekend. Fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. So also by kind of funny coincidence, Shanna, who's the other host for the Off the Grid Readathon, it was her idea, she came up with this concept, decided that she also wanted to read The Turn of the Screw and The Haunting of Hill House. So we're actually going to buddy read The Haunting of Hill House together over the 3 days. It's going to be amazing. So there are 9 chapters in this book, I believe, unless I miscounted, oh my god. No, there are 9 chapters in this book, so we are going to be reading 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday, and 3 on Sunday, or if we decide we are really enjoying it, we'll just say screw it and read more. But we're gonna buddy read this together. It's the first time we've ever buddy read anything, which is shocking because she is one of the first people that I met in the bookish community back in 2017 when I started my blog, and we've been really good friends ever since. She's my bookish twin. We have very, very similar opinions on books and really similar tastes, so I think buddy reading something with her is gonna be amazing. I'm so excited. The reason that I decided to pick up The Haunting of Hill House is because I actually basically binged the series with Scottish husband and my sister. So as I've explained before, what we tend to do is we sync up a film, TV show, whatever, with my sister who lives in London. We are in Oxford, and we basically watch together while we're on the phone together, and it's a really, really fun thing to do, and it's been a godsend during the pandemic because we haven't been able to see each other much. So we wanted to do like maybe an episode on Saturday, or maybe it was Friday or Saturday, and that turned into like 6 episodes. And then we watched the rest over really one more day. We totally binged it, which is hilarious because there are a couple of jump scares in the show that scared me so badly I legit almost threw up. It's really embarrassing. I am so bad with scary stuff, but I love it. So it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fabulous. And I'm really excited for Bly Manor, which hopefully, fingers crossed, will start this weekend. It depends on my sister's plans, because quite frankly, Scottish and husband and I don't really have plans other than we're going to see our friend for lunch on Saturday. That's it. So we are free to watch Bly Manor, Juliet. Please, dear God, watch Bly Manor with us. So I'm in the kind of wind down before bed. I have posted my SFF novellas recommendations video, which I am really, really happy about. I've had that filmed for ages and ages and just have been too lazy to finish editing it, which I literally need to do one edit. And that was it. So I spent the evening doing that, and now I am basically going to be working on my cowl or my infinity scarf for the autumn. I'm going to finish up this little ball of yarn, and then I'm probably going to get in bed and read The Turn of the Screw, which is just so good so far, you guys. I'm really, really loving it. Hello, happy Friday. It is officially the Off the Grid Readathon. I'm so excited. I have just finished work, so now I can actually dedicate myself to doing some reading. So just to update where I am and my plans for the day, I'm about 60 pages from the end of The Turn of the Screw. It's really good. There's a lot more ghosts than I would have thought for some reason, because it's a classic. I had assumed that a lot of like the ghosting would be like, I don't know, sort of not mentioned quite as much, maybe more of like a psychological thing, I don't know, but there's a lot of ghosts in this and it's pretty awesome, so I'm really, really enjoying this. So when I do finish this, which is my plan for tonight, I am going to go ahead and put it down. I won't read the aspirin papers yet. I'll probably do that later. It's kind of not really my priority. What I'll do next is start The Haunting of Hill House. So as I think I mentioned yesterday, Shanna, who is the other co-host of the Readathon, and I are going to be buddy reading this together. So we are going to be reading the first 3 chapters, which in my edition will bring me up to page 92, so that is perfect. And then when I finish that, if I happen to have some extra time, which I'm not really anticipating, I am going to go ahead and start Rebecca, which I know isn't like a ghost spooky book, but it's definitely like a psychological kind of twisty book, so this definitely counts for my spooky reading. I realize that it's not kind of like quite like the other 2 books that I picked for this TBR, but I still think that it fits in really nicely. So the plan is do all of that, and then tomorrow we are seeing our friend Catherine for a kind of brunch. So that is our only sort of plan for tomorrow that involves like leaving the house. So I'm going to be doing more reading of Rebecca, and I will catch up with our buddy read for The Haunting of Hill House. And then on Sunday I'm going to be seeing my family. They're going to be coming out to my town and we're going to have lunch, which will be really, really nice. So there are some things going on this weekend. It's not going to be 100% reading like the last round of the Off the Grid Readathon was, but I think that this is going to be really good. So yeah, I'm really, really pumped to keep reading this. I'm on page 202, and like, man, there's like ghosts everywhere. She's seeing ghosts left and right, and it's awesome. I know I've already said this, but like, I'm so surprised. I don't know, I've never really read any kind of classics in terms of ghost stories other than like A Christmas Carol, which I am well known for my dislike of Charles Dickens, so I've not really had much experience with reading like a really, really good classic ghost story, but I think I might try to seek more out after reading this. So I might turn to M.R. James, who I know wrote a lot of short stories, and if you guys have any like classics with ghosts like The Turn of the Screw, please let me know. it's about 11 o'clock on Friday. I almost said Saturday. And I, where is it? Have finished The Turn of the Screw, which was fabulous. I really enjoyed this. I'm a little bit mad at myself for having not read it sooner because it was so good. So when was this originally published? Let's see if this is kind of in my wheelhouse. So this was originally published in 1907. So I believe that's either still Victorian or just post-Victorian. So it's a little bit later than my kind of usual area for classics and what I studied at university, but still it's something that totally falls within kind of my interest. So I'm a little bit annoyed with myself for having not read it before because it's so good. And this is like proper scary. This isn't something where like, I don't know, like I mentioned before, like, you know, the ghosts are metaphors, or like it's just sort of coy allusions to the fact that there are ghosts. No, there's like figures on staircases, there are faces peeking into windows, there's like creepy kids. It's really good. I really enjoyed this one. So this is highly recommended for your kind of autumn, October reading, but also be a really good one for the winter, because I find that this kind of book is really good for wintertime, the kind of spooky historical stuff. But also it technically kind of takes place on Christmas Eve, because the story is being told to a group of people who are kind of exchanging ghost stories. A man is reading out a manuscript that he received from a woman who experienced this. So she's the unnamed governess in this story. It's just so good. I really loved that. So now I am on to The Haunting of Hill House. I'm 20 pages in, seeing as it's 11:15 at night. I'm probably not going to reach my goal of 92 pages, but that's okay. So this is going to be my primary goal for tomorrow. And for anyone who has anyone who has watched the show, the Netflix adaptation, you may know that this is very much like, it's not an adaptation of the book. They really took the name of the house, they took the title and sort of ran with it, but I was really happy to see that there are kind of references back to this. So again, I'm only 20 pages in, and already, this is for anyone who has watched the show, basically we follow a doctor who has rented this house called Hill House, which is noted for its sort of paranormal activity, and he wants to study it because he would love to be like a parapsychologist, but that's not exactly the most respected of the pseudosciences. So because he can't really get any assistants to hire on to sort of explore this phenomenon, he goes through the records of people who have experienced paranormal things, and he basically writes them and invites them to come and stay at this house over the summer and help him record this phenomenon. So the first person who comes is named Eleanor, or Nellie, as we know her in the show, and she's kind of a sort of sad 30-something-year-old woman who doesn't really have much of a life, and this is kind of her chance to do something a little bit different. And the phenomenon that she experienced was when she was 12 years old, their father had died, and a shower of stones had fallen on their house for days and days, which, if you remember in the show, is something that Olivia talks about, which is really fun. And the other character who comes in to be kind of an assistant is Theodora, or Theo, and then the son of the woman, the nephew of the woman who owns Hill House, comes to sort of be the representative for the family during these experiments, and his name is Luke. So that's really fun kind of throw in for the show. I really enjoyed seeing that. So I'm not very far. We're basically just at the point where Eleanor is driving and kind of like daydreaming. So there's not a lot going on so far, but I am really excited to go ahead and read a little bit more of this tomorrow. So I am going to go get into bed, probably read a little bit more of The Haunting of Hill House, but realistically I'm just gonna conk out for the night. Right, so it's Sunday evening. I've got a small cat with me, and I have not been doing as well with this readathon as I have in the past, as I did last time. I basically just didn't read much at all yesterday. I read maybe like 30 pages or so. I just wasn't really feeling the reading for whatever reason. But on the bright side, I did do a lot of my knittings. I'm making an infinity scarf. This is brioche stitch, in case you're wondering. So I'm doing my infinity scarf. I've got about 30 centimeters till the end, and then we'll stitch it around, and it'll be a lovely, cozy, warm thing. It's nice to actually make something with like bulky yarn after working with such tiny yarn for so long for like Scottish husband's jumper and stuff. So I did that yesterday instead of reading, and I feel like that was actually quite refreshing and nice. We also went ahead and watched Gaslight, which is the 1944 film with Ingrid Bergman. Hi! And it was fabulous. It's on I think it's on Amazon Prime here in the UK. It's absolutely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. The play that it's based on is where the term gaslighting came from, so you can probably kind of guess what the film is about. It's about this woman who meets this man and marries him, and everything kind of starts to go downhill after they get married. She's absolutely convinced that she's losing things, that she's forgetting things, and she's kind of slowly going crazy because her husband is insisting that these things are happening. It is really good, and Ingrid Bergman is a fabulous actress, which is no surprise to anyone because she's, you know, incredibly well known for being a fabulous actress. So I'd highly recommend that. We did a lot of knitting yesterday while watching Gaslight, didn't we? Yes. Dax likes to help with my knitting by eating my yarn. And yeah, so it wasn't a very reading heavy day yesterday, but I did end up doing some reading today. I also saw my family, which was really, really lovely. They came to our town and we had lunch, and we just kind of hung out in town a little bit, and it was a really, really good day. It was really nice to see them because we're a little bit worried about a second lockdown and not being able to see them for quite a while. So we're getting our hangout time in while we can. But even though we did see family and have a big day, I have still managed to do some reading. So I am 160 pages into The Haunting of Hill House, which I'm very, very much enjoying. It's really fabulous. It takes a while to kind of get going, but once you're about chapter 4 or so out of 9, things start to really, really kick off. And it's good so far. I'm enjoying it. I'm very curious to see how this is going to progress and how it's going to end, because it's not very long. So I think it's 245 pages or so, and I'm more than halfway there. So I'm planning on finishing this tonight, which I think will be really, really excellent. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to Rebecca for this readathon, but it is still on my list of things that I would like to read very soon. And yeah, so we'll see how the rest of the evening goes. But I do have high hopes for finishing The Haunting of Hill House, and also paying a lot more attention to Dax, because apparently this is just unacceptable. I totally forgot, I've also lost my glasses. I put them down somewhere, and since I don't have my glasses on, I clearly can't find them. I picked up 3 new books today. We went to my local Waterstones shop, which is quite small, and did a lot of book buying as a family. So I picked up 3 books. There are youths outside, so my apologies for all the sounds that are happening right now. I wish they would stop. It's a Sunday. They need to get their excitement under control. But the first book I picked up is a copy of The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I have read one Wilkie Collins book, and that was The Moonstone, which is often hailed as the first detective book in the English language, which is fabulous. It's fun. It's totally batshit. I loved it. So I thought I'd pick up The Woman in White, which is the first book of his that I had ever heard of, and apparently it's not spooky, but it's quite tense, and I thought that after loving The Turn of the Screw so much, I wanted to try something else that's kind of a classic, not necessarily a horror story, but kind of like horror adjacent story, and this seemed like the perfect thing. Then I picked up a copy of The Sin Eater by Megan Campisi. So this has been taunting me for a long time because this cover really kind of stands out to me. So this is basically like, it's like a, why are you staring at me? It's like a sort of historical fiction but not quite book. I don't think it actually takes place in kind of any sort of historical area or anything, but it's like written like a historical fiction book. So basically it follows a orphan named May, and she's just 14. She's arrested for stealing a loaf of bread, and she is sentenced to become a sin eater, who is a person who consumes the sins of the dead as part of the funeral rites. If you've read The Sin Eater's Daughter by Melinda Salisbury, this will be familiar to you. I don't know if this is an actual thing or not, or if this is a fantasy thing. I haven't really looked into it much, but it's a very cool concept. So basically, her new kind of invisibility opens doors, and so when two of the queen's courtiers suddenly grow ill, she hears the deathbed confessions and begins to investigate a terrible rumor that is only whispered amid palace corridors. So it says that this is set in a thinly disguised 16th century England, which is really interesting. So I'm very curious to see how this is going to play into sort of the historical fiction elements that I would expect, and what's going to be kind of more of a fantasy world building type element. So this looks really, really good. I've had my eye on this for ages. Dax is like half in my lap, and she's like digging her claws ever so gently into my legs. And it's not very pleasant, but she's so cute. She's just looking up at me with her big dumb eyes. She's so cute. The last book that I have is one that I've talked about, I think in my September book haul, maybe. It's a book that I had a digital arc of, and I decided to go ahead and pick up the physical book because I've read one of this author's books before and I really enjoyed it, and this looks fabulous. So this is The Haunting of Alma Fielding by Kate Summerscale. That name might sound familiar to you if you have read The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, which is a nonfiction book by her, and I've read Mrs. Robinson's Disgrace, which is like one of the first divorce cases in England, which is also nonfiction, and this is nonfiction as well. It's kind of the true story of a haunting. So I'm assuming that this is going to be a really, really interesting one. So in London in 1938, an ordinary young housewife becomes the eye in a storm of chaos. So in her house, china flies off of the shelves, eggs fly through the air, stolen jewelry appears on her fingers, mice crawl out of her handbag, beetles appear under her gloves. In the middle of a car journey, a terrapin materializes in her lap. So basically, this man named Nander Fodor, who is a Jewish Hungarian refugee and also the chief ghost hunter for the International Institute for Psychic Research, reads about the case, and he is going to sort of investigate and see what's happening with this haunting. So he begins to unravel her peculiar history and finds a different and darker type of haunting: trauma, alienation, loss, and the foreshadowing of a nation's worst fears. So as the specter of fascism lengthens over Europe, as Fodor's obsession with the case deepens, Alma becomes even more disturbed. So this is a nonfiction book, and it sounds incredible. It sounds really good. I'm very, very interested in this. And I'm also interested in reading The Suspicions of Mr. Witcher, which my mom has confirmed that we do have at home, so maybe that's something I will read over Christmas while I'm at my parents' place. But I think she's a fabulous writer. I really, really enjoyed Mrs. Robinson's Disgrace, and I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is going to be fascinating. Okay, so I'm going to take Dax off with me to have a bath, because I've been quite distracted by my phone this evening, which is kind of not the point of this readathon. So I'm going to lock myself in the bathroom without my phone, and we're going to have lovely bath time. The cats always join me for bath time, which means that I never get any peace in this house. That's okay. But yeah, it should be good. If I don't leave the door open to them, they just scream and scream and scream and scream and scream. Okay, so it's like 10 o'clock on Sunday evening, and the Off the Grid readathon has pretty much finished for me. I'm gonna try to squeeze in, I don't know, maybe another half an hour of reading before bed, but I don't think I'm gonna get very far. So it was a pretty successful readathon for me. I didn't read as much as I wanted. As I said, yesterday was kind of a wash in terms of reading. I didn't really read much at all, but I did still manage to finish 2 books here. So The Turn of the Screw by Henry James and The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Turn of the Screw I'm giving 4.5 stars, and The Haunting of Hill House, because I've literally just finished it, I haven't really ruminated on it much, but it's going to be either 4 or 4.5. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it's been a really, really good readathon, and I'm really glad that I decided to kind of theme my reading around spooky books, because I'm now 100% in spooky bitch mode, and it's fantastic. So if you would like a little sneak peek of what I'm going to be reading this upcoming week, I don't know if I'm going to vlog it or not. I always have good intentions to vlog and then just don't actually do it, but I will start Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. It's a little bit lower on my list of priorities because of the other two books that I have that I was planning on reading this coming week anyway. I was hoping to finish this weekend, but that didn't happen, so it's just added on to my TBR for the week. I am going to be reading The Way of All Flesh by Ambrose Parry. I'm going to be reading this to meet up with one of my real life friends who also had this on her TBR just before her birthday, and we are going to have like a mini book club about it, which should be really, really fun. I am 50 pages into this, and the readathon kind of disrupted my very good intentions to be much further. She's actually finished the book now, and I'm like, need to go ahead and catch up. I have about a week. But this is a historical fiction book set in Victorian Edinburgh, and I believe it's a crime novel. It's interesting. So I saw my mum earlier today, I saw my family, and she saw this sat on the table, and she said that she had read it as well. I asked her what she thought of it, and she was kind of like, I mentioned that I'm not entirely certain if we're supposed to like the main character or not, and she kind of laughed, so I'm wondering if maybe I'm onto something here. But so far I really hate the main character. He's just such a dick. He's such an arrogant dick. He's this young med student who's going to be apprenticing with this famous doctor in Edinburgh, and he's just kind of a pretentious dickbag. And I don't know if he's meant to be a pretentious dickbag or not, but we'll find out. Again, I'm only 50 pages in. There's also a female character in this. She's the maid to the man that he is apprenticing with, and she's, you know, just as smart as any of his students, but she's a woman, so she can't practice medicine. And it's just kind of like, she's very much the Not Like Other Girls, but for a completely different genre. I'm sure the author thought that he was being very clever when he wrote this character, and instead I'm just like, you're a boring YA heroine, next. So we'll see. I've got high hopes to enjoy the book a little bit more. Not a lot has happened so far in this book, so I figure that maybe when bodies start to turn up, things will get a little bit more exciting. So I'm very interested to see how this is going to go. If I like it, it has a sequel. If I don't like it, then that's fine. And then last but not least, I am planning on reading The Stone Knife by Anna Stephens, which is a new release that comes out in November. This is on my NetGalley TBR. I've heard amazing things about Anna Stephens' books. A couple of my friends really, really love her. My friend Bethan from the Fantasy Hive, which is an amazing fantasy blog, like a big community with tons of bloggers. She really, really loves Anna Stephens and is friends with her as well. So Bethan has been trying to get me to read her for ages. Bethan is the reason I read R.J. Barker, who's one of my favorite authors now, so I have a lot of trust in her. So I'm going to be reading The Stone Knife, which is her new book, and I have Godblind, which is the first book in her trilogy. Her very first trilogy was her debut novel, on the shelf. So I'm really excited to read her. I love not only supporting British writers, female British writers, but female British grimdark writers. Like, yes, please. So I've started a little bit. I've read a couple of pages because I'm reading it on my iPad so I can read it before bed, and it's really, really interesting so far. A lot of the sort of magic and everything is based on song and music, and I love that so much. So that is the other thing that I'm planning on reading this week. Obviously that kind of takes precedence over everything else, but The Ways of All Flesh also happens to be a very important one that I need to get through this week, and then I'm really hoping I have time for Rebecca. I'm going to be going over, lockdown dependent, to my parents' place to see my family over Halloween, and we're hoping to be able to watch the film of Rebecca, and I don't know what happens in this book. Apparently there's a twist. I don't know what that is. Don't fucking spoil it for me, I'll be very angry at you. And I'm hoping to have this read before we watch the movie on Halloween, so keep your fingers crossed for me. So that is it for this reading vlog. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed keeping up with my reading this weekend. I'm hoping to do more reading vlogs in the future, so if you enjoy these, definitely let me know and I'll make an effort to do more of them. I would love to know in the comments below if you participated in the Off the Grid Readathon, what you read, how many books you finished, or if you didn't, just what you read this weekend. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.